All right, welcome back, eSIM Studios. My name is Taylor Bell. I welcome you to the YouTube channel and this video. So today we have a bunch of Samsung news. We're going to get into the Samsung Galaxy S25 FE. We're going to talk about the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, the Fan Edition. Samsung tries to bring you as much of the flagship experience as they can to the consumer for a smaller price tag, essentially, right? They want to give you as much flagship opportunities and availabilities there in the device, but not offer it at flagship prices. So on Sammy Fans, I think it's sammyfans.com. Samsung Galaxy S25 FE to feature 12 megapixel selfie camera matching S25 quality. So it looks like they're going to put minus the 200 megapixel sensor. It looks like this S25 FE is basically going to have the same camera sensors that comes on the stock S25. And that's a big improvement because typically Samsung would put lesser quality sensors in the FE. They got to cut costs somewhere, and they would put 2 3 year old sensors in this device, sometimes even 4 year old sensors in these devices to try to cut costs so they can make a profit selling this at a lower price to us, the consumer. But this year they're upgrading the cameras. They're going to upgrade the selfie camera to a 12 megapixel selfie camera. Now, don't let this graphic fool you. This graphic was from the S24 FE. It gives you the camera setup here. With the new S25 FE, they're upgrading everything, selfie camera, and then those three sensors on the back as well. Now, one very big surprising statistic, spec, whatever you want to call it, that really caught my attention with this FE is the CPU. So we've heard rumors that Samsung wants to look, let's make no mistake about it. Samsung wants to use their own CPUs in their own devices, just like Apple, right? In a perfect world for Samsung, every Samsung mobile device would have an Exynos CPU. That's just a fact. Now, they're falling back to Qualcomm and Snapdragon CPUs because they have to, basically. There's a new report that came out that said Samsung was losing up to $400 million in revenue going with processors that are not theirs, meaning if they used Exynos CPUs in all of their devices, they would gain up to $400 million in profits because it's cheaper for Samsung to use their own CPU than it is to go out and buy CPUs from a supplier like Qualcomm, right? So it looks like this S25 FE was originally planned to come with an Exynos 2400E CPU in the device. Now, with some fabrication issues, with some manufacturing issues, they're starting to considering other CPUs for this device. And now, what other CPU could they use? Could they use another Snapdragon CPU? Sure, they could, but it would probably be a last year's right 8 Gen 3, but they've been doing that for the last few years using a year-old CPU, last year's flagship in this year's fan edition, or the current year's fan edition. This year, it looks like they're going to go full flagship on the CPU, but instead of using the Snapdragon 8, instead of using the Snapdragon 8 Elite, they're going to use the MediaTek Dimensity 9400. Now, that's music to my ears because I actually really, really like MediaTek. I've used them a handful of times and I've been very, very impressed with their CPU. This is the same CPU that you can get in their Galaxy tabs. Is it this year or last year? I think it's this year. The S10 or the S10 series has a MediaTek 9400. It's a flagship CPU, comparable specs, comparable performance to the 8 Elite from Qualcomm, but at a lower cost. So they can use, instead of putting the new Snapdragon 8 Elite, the same processor that's in the S25 series, they can put a comparable CPU, get comparable performance, but it costs less. And remember, the FE is all about money, cheap money, right? They're trying to build it cheaper than the flagship S25 because they have to turn a profit. Remember, this is less than the S25 series, so they got to cut costs somewhere. So it makes sense. Happy to see this. Now, before we move on, the only question with this new S25 FE is RAM. I'm got my fingers crossed that they're going to put 12 gigs of RAM in here. So you saw Samsung bump up the S24 Plus, S25 or so S25 Plus to 12 gigs of RAM. You saw Samsung bump the base S25 to 12 gigs of RAM. Let's hope they bump the S25 FE up to 12 gigs of RAM. Now, why did they make the move and increase the RAM in their across the board on the flagship series? Goes back to the AI, right? Takes a lot of RAM to run these AI functions on their devices, and 8 gigs was not cutting it. And I have a sneaky feeling they're going to do the same thing to this. If they're going to want to have Galaxy AI promote all this AI stuff on this device, the 8 gigs is not going to cut it. Now, could they put 10? Sure, but you rarely see 10 gig chips of RAM. Let's hope and pray they put 12 gigs in here. If that's the only spec missing. If they put 12 gigs of RAM in this S25 FE, I will recommend it to purchase. In fact, maybe a pretty good buy. Maybe a better buy over the stock S25. This is going to have a larger screen. It's going to have a 6.6-inch display, I believe. It's a little bit smaller, a hair smaller than the S25 Plus. So it'll have a hair smaller display, but the specs should be comparable to the S25 series, right? So be on the lookout for that. They are going to release it later in the year, so you will have to wait a little bit. But if you like the FE products that Samsung puts out, especially their phone FE, then probably going to want to get this because this looks like a big upgrade in the right direction. Now, speaking of big direction, check this out. So I've always said with this new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, I've had every flip model ever made, going back to the very first one, going back to the Z Flip 6. This is the first year I told myself I'm not going to buy the Flip 7. I know they're going to make small improvements like they do every year on the Flip series or the foldable series, where they throw a spec in there or they upgrade something where you're like, damn, I got to get it. Because the previous year, you're like, damn, if they only put more RAM in this phone, boom, what do you know? Next year, more RAM. Well, damn it, I got to buy it. Only if they put a larger screen on the outside and a made it 120 hertz AMOLED display. Boom, what do you know? The Z Flip 7 is going to have a full display on the outside, 120 hertz refresh rate. Damn, I got to buy it. I'm not going to do it this year. I'm just not. They made the necessary improvements. They even did the cameras. Damn, if they only upgraded the cameras on this Flip 5. What do you know? On the Flip 6, they put a 50 megapixel sensor back there. Damn, I got to get it. Samsung is very sneaky. A lot of these companies are very sneaky. And they could have included all this years ago, but they don't because they want to give you incremental upgrades. They want to make it look like they're upgrading the device this year, right? Now, this is the first notable upgrade to the Fold series that I can think of. Now, Samsung's throwing in the kitchen, everything including the kitchen sink in this Fold 7. So Samsung's kind of doing the opposite of what I just described with the Flip series. Well, they'll just incrementally upgrade a feature here, a feature there, better cameras this year, bigger screen this year, more RAM this year. Samsung's going all in and throwing everything in this upgrade this year. So we all know, we've talked about how thin this is going to be. It'll be, when it's unfolded, the thinnest foldable device ever made. Just under 4 millimeters. I think it's supposed to be 3.9 millimeters thick. I mean, just absolutely insane thinness to the device when it's unfolded. Now, I have not been a purchaser of a Fold series device. I came close with the Fold 6, did not do it. And this year, it finally looks like they're putting in all the necessary upgrades to really get those that are on the fence like myself. I like the Fold 6. I like the features. I like the specs. However, it just does not feel like I don't want to have it folded open the whole time me using it. I want to have it folded closed and use it like a regular phone. I want it to look, I want it to feel like a regular phone in my hand when I'm using it, and then just open it up for media consumption or editing a video, something like that. Well, previous to this year, so going back to the Fold 6 and every fold before that, it felt like just big and clunky. That outside display was too weird. The dimensions were just off. It didn't feel like a regular phone. And that's why I never got one, because a lot of my usage, I'm not going to have it open. A lot of my usage is going to be when it's closed. And I've always thought, man, if they could just make it like this S25 Ultra here, but when you want to open it, it just simply folds open. And when you close it, it's like you're using an S25 Ultra. Well, guess what? That's what they're going to do. Not only are they going to make it razor thin, they've changed the dimensions of it. They've changed the aspect ratio, and they're doing that with the Flip 7 as well. The Flip 7, you know how when it went up the flip, it's real and skinny. Well, here they're changing the aspect ratio. It's going to be the same dimensions as an S25 Plus when you open it up. So it's not so tall and skinny. It's going to feel like a regular phone. Well, that's what Samsung's doing with this Fold 7. When it's closed, it's going to be basically the same dimensions as an S25 Ultra. How freaking cool is that? Not only that, but when you open it up, it's going to have a much larger display. So let's take a look and see just what it's going to look like when it is unfolded. As you can tell, this is the Fold 7 on the left. This is the Fold 6 on the right. You can see how tall and slender Fold 6 is on the right. And then the Fold 7 on the left looks like a S24 Ultra, right? With the squared off design. Now check this out. Holy crap, what a difference. So you have the Fold 7 on the left. You got the Fold 6 on the right. You have the Fold 7 on the left. And you have the Fold 6 on the right. You can tell by the wallpaper here. This is what it's going to look like folded open. So it'll look like two S25 Ultras stuck together right in the middle. So I'm very, very, very happy to see them do this. I think this will pull in a lot more users like myself on the fence. However, I always like to say no phone is perfect. There's no perfect phone. There's always something that I don't like about a phone. It's like, damn, this would be a perfect phone if they only did this. Or damn, why couldn't they do this? It would be a perfect phone. Well, unfortunately, we're going to have that same quote, famous quote with this Fold 7. It would be a perfect foldable if it had a bigger battery. It would be a perfect foldable if it had a 4,000 milliamp hour battery like it has, but it was silicon carbon, so it can hold a bit more battery density to it and basically have a longer charge. It would be a perfect foldable if it had faster charging. See what I'm saying? So time will tell how this is going to play out. Same thing with the Edge, right? It would be perfect if it had a larger battery. It would be perfect if it had faster charging. Well, time will tell how this plays out. But again, no phone is perfect. And those are the downsides to buying these cutting edge technology devices. I don't think I'm going to be getting one, a Fold series. I've been buying a lot of phones lately, just for your knowledge, just to let you know. A lot of these phones I don't get sent to me for free. A lot of these phones I'm buying out of my own pocket. So that's why I don't have every phone under the sun. These things are expensive as hell. So I buy what I can. I buy what I think will benefit the channel. I buy what I want, right? If I don't want it, I'm not going to buy it. So one last thing before we get out of here, and I mentioned shortly on my previous video, it's going back to the Edge. Samsung is going to get rid of the Plus series. And Samsung is going to copy Apple, and they're going to kick that Plus series out the door and insert their Air version, their slim version of the phone. Just like Apple is going to do away with the iPhone, what is it, 17 Plus, and insert the iPhone 17 Air, Samsung's going to do the same thing with the S26 series. So it looks like Samsung next year is going to launch. There will not be a delay with the S26 Edge. It's going to be launched alongside the rest of the S26 series. However, it's going to be inserted in that middle slot. So Samsung is going to do away with the S26 Plus, and you will have an S26 Edge. Now, good news and bad news. Bad news, that sucks. I'm a big proponent of the Plus variant. I think, honestly, this year, I think that was the best phone in the lineup. And maybe I'm making the wrong decision by getting an S25 Edge. Maybe I should just go with the safe bet and get the S25 Plus. But I want it, but nobody YouTube to look at the S25 Plus, right? Even though I believe it's their best series, it's the best model. Because it's basically an S25 Ultra. It's just a hair smaller minus the S Pen. Well, they removed Bluetooth functionalities from the S Pen, so I know a lot of people are using the S Pen less. So why not spend a few $100s less and just get the Plus? Basically, it's the same phone, same specs, right? So the S26 lineup next year, the whole lineup is going to get silicon carbon batteries, including the S26 Edge. So if you're kind of on the fence with getting the Edge, or maybe you skipped out getting the an S25 Ultra this year, you're going to want to get one next year, because Samsung is going to introduce silicon carbon batteries across the S26 lineup, the S26, S26 Edge, and S26 Ultra. And they're bringing back Bluetooth functionality to the Ultra model on the S26 series. So Samsung will be back in full effect with their flagship devices and all the features that Samsung fans love. They will be back. Now, they have the pressure is on. The heat has been turned up, way up on Samsung, because the smartphone market has never been hotter than it is right now. The competition is blazing hot. You got OnePlus going to put out a transformational flagship device with this OnePlus 15. So they've stepped their game up. Nothing has, what it looks like, created a high-end, mid-tier, potentially reaching the lower-end flagship device. They've mentioned their device is going to be $800 now with a flagship CPU. So we'll have to see what that entails. I believe the launch of that is probably about 7 weeks away. I know it's mid-July is when they're going to launch that. So iPhone's going to have ProMotion 120 hertz. They say 120 hertz. It's only 80, but they're increasing, and you're going to see iPhone revamped, the new look, ProMotion across the whole board, the new 17 Air. So you got a lot of competition if you're Samsung, a lot of different choices. So they've kind of been sitting at the top, nice, happy, and fat, sitting at the top of the food chain for a while, at least in the Android world, right? We all know Apple outsells Samsung, but Samsung does sell the most Android phones. So if you're not an iPhone user like myself, Samsung's been sitting nice, fat, and happy at the top of the Android world. Well, guess what? When you're sitting up there nice and fat and happy and with a full belly, and you got a bunch of hungry competitors, they're looking to knock you off the top spot. And Samsung's kind of been, I think, to their own detriment, kind of been playing it safe with a lot of these flagship devices, and the competition has caught up, right? I'm selling my S25 Plus, and I'm going to go grab me a OnePlus 13, right? The blue one. Just because I don't like my S25 overheats, right? So there's a lot more competition out there. So I think you're going to see Samsung really start to increase what they're doing with their devices, in these specs and everything, and they're going to start throwing a lot of new cutting edge technology in their devices, and the heat is on and they know it, and all that good stuff. So I think the future is bright for us cell phone lovers. But that'll do it for the day. Please subscribe to the channel. We got a lot coming up for y'all, and I'm gonna try to start live streaming on a regular basis. But let me get out of here on that. Do appreciate the time, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace out.